Sweating in all my robes, and it was a wonderful time, but it was very sweaty. Speaking of sweating, I'm excited to be here, but I am pretty nervous. The stage does look a lot smaller on YouTube. First of all, thank you for the fantastic welcome. The confetti cannons terrified many people, and the fancy drinks. Couldn't believe it, Fentimans. Other drinks are available. Becca, Stanley and I already feel part of the family here, and it's only been 1 week, so thank you so much. This week, I will be carrying on with our sermon series on the Psalms of Ascent. Today, we are looking at Psalm 121, and I think it calls us to remember what God has done for you, for me, and for us all together as a church, so that we can step forward with genuine hope. In the news this week, I read about a man called Thomas. One night when he was 19, he was waiting to be picked up after a game of football and was tragically hit by a car. Amazingly, he survived the impact, barely a scratch on his body, and actually they released him after 24 hours. But it soon became clear that he had suffered a serious brain injury and he had lost the entire memory of his life before the accident. Thomas loved it when his friends and family visited him in hospital, but he had no idea who they were. To make things even harder, he developed something called face blindness, which means he would literally forget what somebody looked like, even if he'd just seen them moments ago. Before the accident, Thomas was excited to be going to university to study design. But after, when he saw his own work, he couldn't remember it, and even worse, he didn't like it. It seemed like all of his passions and interests had been lost along with the rest of his memory. Family and friends tried helping him remember his past with stories and photographs. But in the interview, he said that's all they were to him, someone else's stories and photographs. He felt no connection because he couldn't remember being there himself. Although he was recovering well physically and managing to get by in life, he really struggled to have hope for his future, his relationships, his own identity, when he had such a big question mark over his past. 10 years later, for his 30th birthday, Thomas put together a playlist of music for his party. He chose all 80s music because apparently that's what he liked to listen to. The night before the big party, lying on his bed, he put some headphones on and pressed play. He suddenly realized he knew all the songs off by heart, word for word. Then something amazing happened. The Whole of the Moon came on by the Waterboys. It is a banger. I think mandolin sales shot up 200%. And Thomas started to have flashbacks. Memories from inside his head came to the surface. They were his memories drawn from his experiences, not just some faded photos and stories told by someone else. Thomas remembered sitting on the floor, looking at a silver radio. He remembered holding his dad's hand, and he remembered looking at a Christmas tree with his mum. All of these memories triggered by listening to one song. I think of the Psalms of Ascent as a soundtrack to our walk with God. And I think Psalm 121 is the one that pushes us to remember what God has done. In fact, I think a lot of the Bible is about remembering what God has done. A couple of months back, because I'm super interested, I decided to binge on the Psalms, which means I went through different church traditions, looking at different ways of reading all the Psalms. It started off as a month, and then I found one where it was in 2 weeks, and then I did one where it only took 1 week. Becca nearly killed me because I was reading late into the night with the bedside light on, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it was superb. However, I've got to be honest, it doesn't half go on about Exodus. So you start reading the Psalms and you come across one that says, "Oh Lord, you are the God who brought us out of Egypt." And you think, yeah, you know what? He did. That's great. Then you get to another one that says, "God, you created everything. Oh, and by the way, you rebuked the Red Sea and it became dry." You go, right, okay, yeah, that's Exodus again. And then, "Oh, you divided the Red Sea and you showed your signs in Egypt." Yep, you did. That's great as well. And then you keep going and going. And it says, "And God, you overthrew." And I'm thinking, don't you dare say, Egypt! You overthrew the Pharaoh and his army in the Red Sea. And I'm thinking, come on. Getting a bit sick of all these memories. Constantly looking back. Why are they important to us today? Are they even relevant to us today? I think Thomas's story gives us a clue. He was doing okay without his past memories while he was focusing on recovery from his accident. But there was no foundation for him to move forward until his memories resurfaced. It was only then that he could start the rebuilding of his own identity, actually who he is, and then be able to look into the future with hope. Psalm 121, our soundtrack for today, is the kind of flashback on which we can build our identity as the future. The first line of the psalm is an action of looking up, and we ask, where does our help come from? And the response is, the Lord who made heaven and earth. We can see the beauty of creation around us. Even in this room, we can look at ourselves and one another, how we are each individually amazingly made in God's image. From verse 5 to the end, the psalm is building on the power of remembering, which is enabling us now to step out in courage and faith because of what we remember. It says, the Lord is your keeper because he has been your keeper. The Lord will keep you from all evil because he has before. He has kept your life so far and so will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. If the Psalms are a soundtrack to our shared journey of faith, then I think Psalm 121 is a boost. It's a pick-me-up when the journey is starting to lag. It's the ultimate anthem. It's Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer at a wedding party to try and fill the dance floor. We all know this next one. It's forming a line for the Macarena at your school disco. I'm not the only one. I can see guilt somewhere. Or maybe, and this is a big maybe, depending on who you support, not saying anymore. Maybe it's everyone singing the national anthem at the beginning of a football game. What's interesting about this psalm is that historically, it's been used as a prayer for childbirth, but it's also read at funerals. I myself read it at my granddad's funeral quite a few years ago. The words of Psalm 121 are words for the whole of life, the whole journey. The thing about a journey, especially of faith, is that it's not just about getting from A to B, but it's how you get there. So questions like, how are you strong when it gets tough? How do you get energy when you feel tired? What do? We remember. We look to our anthem, Psalm 121, and remember what has been done for us, what has been promised for us, and we step forward on these foundations with genuine hope in God. So I invite you all now to stand together for prayer.